feels like they love throwing you against young guys coming into the UFC and trying to make a name off you. Do you feel that way too?
Um, no, I don't think so. I think the UFC has always liked the way I fight, so I think it's like a win-win for the UFC. It's like they build me up or they build him up. So it's yeah, I like it.
Do you feel like your experience is going to be a big difference maker here, right? He's making his debut. You've come in here. You've done this a few times now. Do you think that already gives you a mental edge before the fight even starts?
Yeah, experience is something definitely something you can't buy or you have to literally experience it. I even witnessed that myself in my last fight. It's the experience. Experience matters a lot in this game.
Give me an insight into what experience can mean, right? So, for example, what's one of the biggest lessons you've learned in a fight during your UFC career that now every time you go into another fight, you're like, oh, I remember this happened in that one. I'll learn from that.
Yeah, so like looking back at my last fight, also, Rosa, he's a veteran of the game. It's like you can't make a single mistake in that game. It's like you can be winning the fight, but if you make one single mistake and let's say you take a little mental rest in the game, you there's a punishment for it, and that's what I learned. I learned how to be dialed in for 15 minutes straight, no matter what. And I think when you're so new in this game, when you're new and it's always been one-sided, you're always willing to take a risk, and sometimes you can't take a risk.
You kind of expecting that from Austin then on Saturday, that he's going to come out there swinging. It's the UFC debut, right? That he might take some risks that you can see and take advantage of.
Yeah, I definitely see that. He's young in his game, so I feel like it'd be kind of chaotic for a bit, but I just have to stay composed and do my thing.
Good luck.
Thank you.
What was the biggest lesson that you took in your last fight?
It's something I've been kind of doing now too. Is after that last fight, I've been doing more film work. That's something I didn't really do much before. Like perfect example for my contenders fight, I probably watched 2 minutes of my opponent, and I was like, all right, I got this. One thing I know that I'm good at myself is I know how to figure people out in the moment. But I mean, the more knowledge you get off people's fights, it's like the easier it is. So, so yeah, more film work and more being present in the moment.
What's the process of watching film on your opponent? Do you go back and like watch their last 3 fights or just their last fight? Like, what's your process?
Yeah, I always like the way to see how they move, what they like doing, stuff like that. The way I see it is maybe it's not for everybody, but you should always be improving after your last fight. It's like you should be a whole different person after your last fight. If you carry on the same skill set and the same game plan for every single fight, someone's gonna figure you out.
What's up with the hair? Are you doing like a Charles Oliveira kind of bleach, or are you, or is this the C-Rod bleach?
Nah, it's a C-Rod bleach. Yeah.
Um, what's the possibility of you going back down to bantamweight, are you kind of thinking that featherweight is going to be your permanent home?
Yeah, featherweight's my permanent home. I like how I feel at featherweight, and that's my home for now.
How much weight were you cutting to get down to bantamweight?
Uh, I usually, even after the times I've made bantamweight, after rehydrating up, I'd get up to like 65, 66, and that's like fight day. So yeah, good 30 pounds, and I'm already kind of lean too. So, and I'm only getting older too, so I'm gonna fill out naturally. I can get stronger.
Gotcha. Good luck, man.
Thank you.
When you're given the name Bashi, were you able, since you like to do the film thing, were you able to watch anything on him? Was it just going back and looking at the Contender series, or were you able to see any of this stuff beforehand? And did you know anything about this guy when you got the name?
Yeah, when I heard Bashi, honestly, I had no idea who he was. Yeah, I had no idea who he was. He's been saying that we were supposed to fight in the local scene, I think. Yeah, I had no idea who he was. I know he's supposed to fight at my manager's promotion, but I think he declined like 7 or 8 fights. But yeah, after seeing his last couple fights, he's tough kid, but he's very, very one-dimensional.
And when you have something like that where you don't see a lot of fight tape, now that it's becoming more of a big part of your training, do you just then revert back to focus on yourself? What initial things that maybe you need to work on from the last fight?
Yeah, always. I always see my last fight or the last fights before that. I'm like, how can I beat myself? So that's where I get the improvement from.
And I believe we asked him, if he was going to feel those UFC jitters, and didn't seem like he was bothered by the pressure. You've been there. You've been through the UFC debut. If a fighter comes in and says, no, I'm not going to feel any pressure, is there truth to that? Or do you think that no matter what he said, he's going to feel something when it comes fight night?
Nah, I feel everybody gets jitters. Everyone feels the pressure. I mean, we're in the UFC, It's like even the top level guys, they always get nervous. They always feel the pressure, For someone to say they don't feel anything, it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of weird, but
Yeah.
to each their own,
Yeah. And how much of a factor, I mean, you've got almost 3 years of UFC experience now under your belt. Here's a guy that's coming in on his debut. How much is that experience and being the ups and downs, but being in such a pressure cauldron, how is that going to affect you when you go in? And how is that going to be better for you as opposed to him?
Yeah, this experience is gonna matter a lot, I think it's gonna play a big role. But yeah, you guys will see on Saturday.
And are you the kind of guy that checks the odds? For some reason, you're the guy that has the experience, but he's coming in as a favorite. Do you pay attention to that stuff, or does that bother you, or do you think that the odds makers don't know what they're talking about and you want to, put it back in their face?
I look at it, but I never put too much attention to it. Like, it doesn't bother me. I don't even know who's in charge of the odds.
Yeah.
Who is in charge of the odds? Is that
Each there's a few different bookies at the major organizations, and then they put the odds out, and then usually money then influences it or something.
Yeah, I have no idea. It's like, yeah, I don't really care about that kind of stuff.
Would there be any extra pleasure taking that zero from a fighter when they come in undefeated? Is there any extra pleasure in that?
Honestly, like before, when I first started I didn't really care. But now I like it. Because, I mean, I look at my record and I see those 2 losses and I'm like, fuck, I'm like, that sucks. But yeah, it feels good. And it's like, the UFC has never given me an easy matchup.
It's going to be tough, but do you like the fact that the UFC is giving you tough matchups for everyone?
No, I do. It definitely puts more fire in me. It's like, it helps me build my career up, It's like, we don't look at my record and be like, Christian Rodriguez fought this nobody, It's like, all these guys I fought, they're still in the UFC. They have big names for themselves, so it definitely feels good.
And what do you think a win over Bashi will do for you in the division?
I think it puts me back up there. It puts my name a little higher. It does bring more attention to my name just because there's a lot of eyes in this fight, too, It's not like I'm on the prelims fighting some random person, so win against him means a lot.
And it's got to be exciting. You're fighting on the first event of the year. It sets the precedent that you might get a lot of fights this year. So what are your goals for 2025?
Yeah, I want to stay active this year. I want to fight at least 3 to 4 times this year. I'd love to fight another pay-per-view. Last time I fought on a pay-per-view, that was insane.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a whole different experience. But I definitely love fighting in these stadium events.
And last for me, your keys to the victory. What needs to happen to make sure that you get your arm raised on Saturday?
I need to have fun. I need to be myself.
Is the having fun version of you a very dangerous version?
Yeah, a happy fighter's a dangerous fighter.